Hey, it's recording.
Okay, guys. I did my presentation on optimizing health for the athletes through eating essentially a low inflammatory diet. I hesitate to say paleo just because I know that's a little bit cultish, but the principles are the same. So let's continue. Here's a basic outline of what it entails. I just want you guys to keep in mind as we go through, and you can go to the next slide as well. And here are the foods to avoid. So the previous slide, meats, fruits, and vegetables. That's what we're focusing on. Right here, we're avoiding grains, dairy, legumes, sugars, vegetable oils, and highly processed meats. And I'll explain why later. We'll get a little bit more scientific. Okay, so the information in this PowerPoint is based on research. It would be much longer than a 15-minute presentation if I were to go into each and every single individual detail. But suffice it to say that nutrigenomics, which is a field of study that popped up the last 20 to 25 years, which studies the effect of food, the foods that we eat, on our gene expression. Now, gene expression being our DNA means, how much lean body mass we carry, how much fat we carry, autoimmune disorders or chronic illnesses that we might have. Food is the most potent drug you can put into your body because of the cascade of hormones that it invokes when we're digesting it. So based off that theory, next slide please. The researchers sought to study what exactly we can optimally handle as human beings, as a species, what we've been exposed to for millions and millions of years. And what they found, which I'm sure all of you have heard at this point, is that we're hunter-gatherers. I mean, we've been exposed to meat, fruit, vegetables, leaf products, insects for millions of years, and in different proportions depending on where exactly your ancestors originated from. But 2.6 million years ago, the second bullet point is outlining the advent or of the first usage of stone tools. And once that happened, once we were able to successfully use stone tools, we became a much more carnivorous population. We turned into more hunter than gatherers. But something 10,000 years ago changed. Next slide. And that was food domestication. That was the harvesting of wheat, of processed simple sugars, and the fact that it was 10,000 years ago, you have to understand that 10,000 years in the context of evolution is the blink of an eye. It's not enough time for any stimulus to be successfully adapted to as a species. So what they're saying, and what all these principles are pointing to, are the fact that these simple or processed carbs, these sugars, grain, we're not able to digest them because our genome hasn't evolved yet. And the biggest culprit to this is sugar. Next slide, please. Now, sugar, our ancestors only knew sugar through the fructose in fruits, and that was largely seasonal. So it was not in abundance whatsoever. But fruit, sugar itself was only introduced to us about 500 years ago. So not even 10,000. That's less than the blink of an eye. And it came, as you can see right here, Christopher Columbus brought it from Southeast Asia 500 years ago, and it became a huge proponent of the standard American diet today. Next slide, please. Here are the effects of sugar on the body. Promotes the cortisol adrenaline release, which is the fight or flight response. Acutely, that's a fine response. That's healthy. I mean, that's what has kept us surviving for millions of years. But chronically induced, which you get when you keep on eating sugar, or the constant, digestion of sugar, we're not looking for that. That's what's impairing our immune system, which is the next one. It inhibits leptin, which controls appetite, promotes oxidative stress, fuels cancer cells, insulin resistance, etc., etc. Next slide, please. Now, this is a graph outlining the rise in sugar consumption over the course of about 200 years. As you can see, 1820s, it was about 5 pounds per person per year. Nowadays, it's over 100 pounds per person per year in terms of the sugar consumption. So, next slide. Tooth decay, that's one of the unfortunate side effects. You can ask Coach James. Go ahead. Ansel, because Monster energy drinks. Yeah. Okay. So this guy right here, his name is Ansel Keys. The reason why he's important is he answers the question of how it became such a huge proponent of our diet today. And he, in the 1970s, proposed the lipid hypothesis, which incorrectly stated that dietary fat was the cause for most of our chronic illnesses and heart disease that we were experiencing, not only during the 20th century, but nowadays as well. So it became conventional wisdom once his study was released to start prescribing a diet that was majority of carbs, 55 to 60%, as you can see, and regardless if it was sugar or simple sugar-based. And this is what eventually caused the unhealthy, side effects that we're experiencing as a chronically obese and chronically ill population today. Next slide, please. So the answer, we have false information surrounding us all the time regarding what we should be eating. This study, as I showed you, the lipid hypothesis, was just recently proven false. So what are we to do? And the answer is fairly simple, and it's a low inflammatory diet. Like I said, I put paleo in parentheses right there, but that kind of digresses from the point I'm trying to make. The point is, you should be eating real food. Food that we have had access to for millions of years, that we can optimally digest, can optimally fuel our performance. So that's meat, fish, eggs, you can eat it all there. And it's important to realize this isn't a diet, especially since the remainder of this PowerPoint will be focused on athletes. Not everyone is trying to lose weight. Everyone thinks, when they hear diet, they think lose weight. We're trying to, increase lean body mass, increase strength, increase performance, and that oftentimes requires a caloric surplus. So, and just really driving the point home that eating this way will help you to perform at your best, have the strongest immune system you can possibly have, and it will pretty much stave off any lifestyle-related diseases or conditions. Next slide, please. All right. This is a summary of the principles. We don't have to go over that because I just did. Next slide. All right. Basic comparison, standard American diet and the paleo diet. You're going to have better insulin sensitivity simply from your choice of carb sources, going from sugars, whether it be Slurpees or it's candy bars or even just wheat, pasta, anything like that, to fruits and vegetables. You're going to be more sensitive to insulin, which means, especially if you're a bodybuilding, powerlifting, athletic background, being insulin sensitive is key, especially in that post-workout window, to really optimize the anabolic effects. Better fatty acid composition, just coming from a diet that's very high in fish oils, having a better omega-6 to 3 balance, it's going to lead to a lower inflammatory response. Better acid-base balance is going to provide an optimal environment for bone production and bone maintenance. Sodium-potassium ratio, you're going to have a higher potassium to sodium ratio, which is going to be just a more efficient musculoskeletal system and more efficient hydration, and a higher fiber content, self-explanatory. Just you're going to be having a lot of leafy green matter along with fruits. It's going to happen. Next slide. All right, so just to touch on this again, now I'm going to get into why precisely we avoid these. I told you it's because they're relatively new to the diet and that we aren't accustomed to actually eating them. But the reason for that is that they're pro-inflammatory, and I could have done an entire presentation on inflammation in itself, but I'm just going to cover it briefly right here. What pro-inflammatory means is that because we can't digest these optimally, they have nutrients in them that to other species who can digest them, it's fine. It's not considered an anti-nutrient. But to us, the nutrients that these provide, some of them are considered anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients meaning when we digest these, it actually draws nutrients outside of our body to be able to effectively cope with them. So that being the term, anti-nutrients, taking nutrients away from what we already have to try and excrete it, to try and get it out. It treats it like a poison, essentially. And that's a little bit of an extreme term, but it is what it is. Next slide, please. So, okay, finally getting to the athletes. So that's great that we know what we need to avoid and what we should be eating, but how do we kind of cater to athletes? And because of the unique demands that are placed on their body in terms of how active they are, for how long they're working out for, we kind of need to start structuring a higher GI fruits, maybe tubers and potatoes around their workouts to be able to optimally utilize that anabolic response that I was talking about earlier. So let's go to the next slide. And you'll see that there are 4 stages, and it's pretty simple. It's before workout, during workout, immediately after workout, and then 2 or 3 hours after your workout. Okay. The only time you would really eat during the workout is if it was over an hour in length, because the intensity or the duration, it just isn't going to be there if it's less than an hour for you to need a sports drink or a sugary sports drink. But for a lot of people who had hour-long games or longer than that, hour-long races or longer than that, that is the most quickly digestible substance that you will be able to utilize. And we also have to understand that cavemen, for lack of a better term, were not working out like we are today. So that's why we need to change around the rules for these athletes. But for all the other stages, as you can see at the very bottom right there, bananas, yams, sweet potatoes, raisins, regular potatoes. Those are all foods that we can easily digest, that have been around for a long enough period of time, that can fuel this kind of activity. Next slide, please. So the benefits for the athletes are the same benefits I was outlining earlier. I want to focus on that top one. Health and fitness aren't the same. You can have someone who's very physically fit on the outside, but that doesn't mean that on the inside they're healthy. They could be suffering from any sort of autoimmune related disease. They could be having impaired recovery through poor sleeping, poor dietary habits. Their mood state, which is very closely related with diet, could be affected as well. So it's important to understand that they could be suffering from chronic low levels of stress, whether it be from just societal situations or their diet that we're not seeing. So those two do not go hand in hand. Improper recovery from the above could lead to injuries and burnout. Like I said, the population I'm working with, this is pretty self-explanatory. Increased branched chain amino acids, that's just going to come from having a larger portion of your diet composed of meat. You're going to have more protein, you're going to have more branched chain amino acids. Optimal fat ratios, lower body acidity, which we talked about, its positive effects on bone mass, and high in trace nutrients, which all that means is everything you're eating is as nutritionally dense as you can get. Meaning it has vitamins, it has minerals, it has fiber. It's not empty. It's not devoid of nutrition, which is what happens when something is processed and refined. The nutrition is drawn out of it. So, next slide, please. So how can we make it happen? Because this is not easy. We're surrounded by quick fixes, fast food restaurants. It's not easy to implement, but as a college student and as someone who has eaten this way for a while now, I can tell you, dining facilities, at least the all-you-can-eat ones at JMU, they always have meat and vegetable options that you can choose from. They generally will always have fruit at hand as well. Some of the local restaurants, Chipotle, you can always opt for the extra meat and guac as opposed to getting the rice, the beans, or the tortilla. I don't know if you guys have Whole Foods around here, but it's essentially it's a farmer's market it's like a Kroger farmer's market. It's a grocery store farmer's market. And shop mindfully. Whenever you're going to a Kroger or Walmart, do perimeter shopping. That's what I do. You just shop around the stores because that's where all the meat, fruits, and vegetables are. There's really no reason to go into the aisles because that's where everything has a shelf life. Everything it never has to get changed out because it's there for months or years at a time. And stock up on good snacks. Just for tight situations, trail mix, fruits, jerkies, it's pretty easy. Next slide. Tips for success: develop a routine, plan as many meals as you can in advance, develop and refine that routine, and understand that the more that you develop and refine that routine, the more that you plan in advance, prepare, the easier it will become. And if all else fails, like I said, this is a point I really want to drive home. If all else fails, the only message you take away from this is just eliminate sugar and processed carbs, and except for maybe around workouts, depending on the nature of the workout. Next slide. Summary of the benefits: stronger immune system, optimal health, proper BMI, and more consistent energy levels throughout the day. And that's it. Any questions?